right. Hello, everybody. It is a very exciting day. Um, Let me know in the chat if you are able to see and hear me. There's, again, like always, about a 20-30 second delay. Um, but I want to thank everybody for joining me, and I'll wait to see. Uh, yes, so it sounds like can y'all hear me? Okay, fantastic. Yes, sofa this time. Yeah, mostly because I kind of need just want to be comfy today. But yes, in 1 hour, the premiere of Symphony Four, Symphony Two, at 4 o'clock my time, is going to take place. I see several people in the room who participated in the project, and I want to take this next hour to basically thank everybody who participated, to talk a little bit about the project, why it took so long. But yes, I am very, very excited to finally have this piece done. Yes, Symphony 4 would have been a lot easier. You are correct, Jaden. Symphony 4 is much, much smaller. But to give you kind of an idea, it took 16 months from start to finish. We started this in early March last year, right when Corona was just kind of starting to hit. And I was looking at all my musician friends and said, "Hey, you guys, let's try a project. Who wants to record my Symphony 2?" Not thinking, how much work it would involve. And within a day, I had probably half the spots filled. And I slowly added numbers to that over the next month or so, to where really became a very feasible project. It is, if you have ever seen any of the other virtual wind ensembles, virtual concert bands, virtual orchestras, I don't think anybody's ever tackled something quite this large. Most of the time, when people are doing a virtual group, it is a small piece, 3-5 minutes long, probably nothing ever much over 10 minutes. This piece is 50 minutes long. It is just shy of an hour. Yes, the shirt. I love the shirt. I just got it last week. It is a diagram of bassoon keywork. So I figured I would nerd out a little bit with that today. So instead of what another group would consider one piece, we basically did 11. We broke the piece down into 11 sections, each one recorded separately. And yeah, so basically, instead of one piece, is it was like 11 that have all been spliced together. Do I plan on doing more projects like these with some of my smaller compositions? It is possible. This has taken a lot of effort. I am not at the moment ready to jump into another project quite like this. I'd like to, do some composing next. Maybe start work on Symphony 5. We'll see. I don't know. I probably will in the future, but we'll see how this takes off. So yeah, I started getting quite a bit of response. People started filling out the spots. We started making, spreadsheet with who all's going to cover what in there. I made all the click tracks and slowly started getting recordings. And I started putting it together, and it's really the first time I've ever heard this piece come to life. And so that was really exciting to hear this massive, massive piece start to come to life. And a lot of these were, good friends of mine who volunteered, and then those friends reached out to friends of theirs, and then they reached out to friends of theirs. So it's just this huge network. In the end, 59 people recorded at least one track for the piece. They represent 9 different countries: United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Ireland, Switzerland, Serbia, Singapore, Australia, and New Zealand. And that's on 4 different continents. So it's a global project. I tried to do this today at a time when it would be possible to get the most participants available. I know I saw Allison in here. She is our percussionist from Australia. I think it's pretty late for some of the Europeans involved, but I mean, there is no one time that you could do this and get everybody involved. So I started putting it together, and I will say right at the start, I had absolutely no mixing experience, no real audio experience in that, and so it was very much a learning curve. And I think that the end result is really, I think it's pretty impressive for the limited capabilities I have. Good, Simon. Yeah, 10 p.m. in Switzerland. So I kind of picked as good a time as I possibly could have to get everybody involved. Good. I took a lot of advice from my good friend Michael Feingold, who is a phenomenal recording artist, guitar player, orchestrator, played on the new Bruno Mars single. So he gave me a lot of mixing and editing advice, and so that really helped the whole piece start to come alive in the audio process. So by the middle to end of March, I had the first tracks in. I was hoping for a completion date in June or July of last year. Little did I know it was going to take a full another year. But there are some good things in that we had to wait that long. In that time, I got to witness the very first notes of an instrument I wrote for but had never heard, and that's Richard's Sub Contrabassoon. You will hear the Sub Contrabassoon as the very final sound of the symphony, the real thing. There are parts of it that have kind of been digitally manipulated, but the last note is the honest, authentic instrument, and you should listen to it on really good speakers because it is going to have just this enormous rumble. I ended up building a few instruments for it. I've got a wind machine back in my back bedroom. I've got a thunder sheet in my garage. That's all been recorded. But what I would like to do next is personally thank everybody in the project. So this is going to take a while. This is like big Oscar speech. How am I doing today? The PDQ Buck channel asks. Surprisingly, not so well. I am actually scheduled for surgery on Monday. So minor surgery, but I have my gallbladder removed on Monday, so I've been in quite a bit of pain for the last 2 weeks. On that, I almost did not get this uploaded today. I started the upload process last night at midnight. The video file is 5 gigabytes, and my upload speed is pretty slow. So thinking, okay, midnight, yeah, we could probably have it uploaded by the morning. I get up today, and it's uploaded only 58%. My internet speed is super slow. I go to the Starbucks here. Their internet's down. I end up having to drive 30 miles away to the next Starbucks where they have a decent upload speed. I finish uploading it there. I rush back. I get back about 2. Playing Sub Contrabassoon causes gallbladder problems. Actually, I got the first gallbladder problems after a concert where I played sopranino sax. So it's actually the other end of the spectrum. I think Sub Contrabassoon might actually cure them. But no, it's definitely the high pitch instruments. So yeah, I did not get everything fully uploaded until about 2 o'clock today. Just barely. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go down the list of the roster, and I want to just personally thank everybody who recorded. Give me a second while I bring up that roster. Some people just went absolutely above and beyond. There are some people that recorded 2, 3, 4 complete parts. So let's start off with the flutes. And on Piccolo 1, Deborah Titus, who is a local player here, stepped in to cover Piccolo 1 and just did a phenomenal job. You'll hear a few solos from her throughout the piece. Lynn Williams stepped in and did 1 or 2 additional tracks on the piccolo. Interestingly, on Piccolo 1, the very last track turned out to be really difficult, and it's just a long held high F sharp. So I ended up actually recording that one myself. I don't play piccolo very often, but what I did is, because the high F sharp on the piccolo is a really pretty bad note, I took it down half a step and played it on the D flat piccolo. So we got a slight extra instrument in there. When I do a revision on the score, it will have the option of that being played on D flat piccolo. But yeah, so I played piccolo on 1 track. It's the final track. You will hear me squealing away on a D flat piccolo. But Lynn Williams, who did Piccolo 2 and the G treble flute, as well as Flute 2. Piccolo 2 and G treble are a doubling part. So Lynn did 2 complete tracks, as well as a little bit on Piccolo 1. I put a call out on the Flute forum, say, hey, can anybody play G treble? And she immediately stepped in, did a phenomenal job. G treble flute is just such a sweet little instrument. I absolutely adore it. Her playing was phenomenal. On Flute 1, we had a split part between Jamarius Reddit, who's, I believe he's a band director in Alabama, and Jaden Wedby, who I think is here now. Yep, so Jaden is commenting. He did, I think, 1 track on Flute 1. Jamarius did all the rest. Jamarius, I think he came down with COVID during the whole pandemic, and so he was not able to complete it, and Jaden stepped in. They sound absolutely wonderful. You'll hear solos from both of them. On alto flutes, Anders Bostrom, he is a phenomenal flute player, does a lot of work on Broadway. I know he's played in The Lion King and a few others on Broadway, and I put a call out on Instagram, and he immediately stepped in and recorded very quickly both alto flute parts. You don't see a lot of pieces with 2 alto flutes in them, but it really has this lovely thickening of the flute section. And on tenor flute, aka bass flute, is of course Jaden Wedby. Jaden is probably the youngest person on the recording. He's still a high school student and just knocked it out of the park on the tenor flute. You'll hear there's a duet between Jaden and myself. I played all the bassoon tracks, and you'll hear some of his bass flute, tenor flute tracks on there. To oboes. My oboe section is kick ass. They are some of the... This is probably the highest pedigreed section in the whole ensemble. I put out a call for oboes, and immediately some very dear and old friends of mine, Steve and Cindy Petty from the Dallas Winds, the first and second oboe player from the inception of the group up until last week when they retired after 30-some years with the Dallas Winds. They were the entire oboe section. They recorded both oboes 1 and 2. A phenomenal playing, and they are part of the reason that I got so highly involved in wind band. Oboe d'amore is Garrett Dutcher, phenomenal player, kind of crazy like myself. He loves experimenting with some of the weirder instruments. Right now he's experimenting with a low A oboe, which I find fascinating. Absolutely beautiful oboe d'amore playing. You will hear him in The Dream of Love and The Dream of Death. The oboe d'amore will go off stage, and of course, in a digital recording, it's very hard to do. But the d'amore goes off stage, and you'll hear it way off in the distance. The very last solo you'll hear. On English horn is Dr. Erica Koreshi, who just finished up her doctorate in oboe performance. Absolutely wonderful English horn sound. She talked about maybe commissioning an oboe concerto from me for wind band, and I really kind of want to do that. And on heckelphone, John McDougall, the principal bassoon of the BBC Symphony Orchestra. Probably one of the highest tier players we've got in the whole ensemble, and just a phenomenal heckelphone sound. I originally conceived it with just a standard bass oboe in mind, but it did some revisions, and it really suits the heckelphone well, and you'll hear lots of heckelphone throughout the whole piece. And then the biggest section in the piece is the clarinet section. There are, 13 different clarinet parts on nearly as many sizes of clarinet. Heather Chelsea Gehring just knocked it out of the park on the E-flat clarinet. The stuff in The Dream of Nature she does with all these grace notes and florid figures, it's just... makes it almost sounds effortless on notes up to like high G. And then Brendan Toohey on C and B flat clarinet. Phenomenal. So good on his B flat clarinet playing that there were a few passages when it goes up to a written high C, like super altissimo, and I had to double check. Did he take that down an octave? Because that sounds too easy. Nope. Some of the most flawless clarinet technique I've ever heard. And Ethan LaRue did clarinet too. Student in Alabama. I'm not sure which university Ethan is at. He did clarinet too. Wonderful, wonderful playing there. He is a huge supporter of mine and helped recruit a lot of the players who joined us. On A clarinet, Matthew Jeans, who is a doctoral candidate at the University of Texas at Austin. I think this is the first time he had gotten to use his brand new A clarinet. You'll hear a big solo from him in The Dream of Death at the very end. On F alto clarinet, basset horn, my dear friend Jared De Leon recorded two absolutely wonderful basset horn tracks. With that, Joe Clark on E-flat tenor clarinet, aka alto clarinet. So you've got two basset horns and two alto clarinets. And I just love being able to hear those two instruments together. Joe was the very first person to record within like 2 days of announcing the project. I had the alto clarinet parts in, and they were done, and they were wonderful. I cannot say nearly enough good things about either of those two guys. Jared and I, talk every day. We're talking about the Great Bassoon. We're talking about clarinet projects. Joe has premiered several pieces of mine, including Sora Poseidon for contrabass clarinet, as well as my 3 pieces for great bass clarinet. And then, how can I forget, Dr. Jason Alder, who just defended his dissertation, was it this week or last week? Just became doctor of contrabass clarinet. He just his 3 tracks. He did bass clarinet 1, bass clarinet 2, and B flat contrabass clarinet. And holy crap, he knocked it out of the park. Those are just some phenomenal tracks. And then Matthew Banks did the E flat great bass clarinet part. And he's a wonderful friend of mine. I've known him for several years. Local guy. We'll hang out every now and then. And I did a couple tracks on it. So I stepped in with mine. And then I did a few additional clarinet tracks here and there, just to kind of fill in some stuff. But yeah, the clarinet section just absolutely knocked it out of the park. Saxophones. On sopranino sax, Dr. Alexander Richards. Alex and I met at a party for the opening of TB Wins, a local repair store in Denton, where I go and buy a lot of my supplies from. We started chatting and said, "Hey, I'm working on my doctorate in sopranino sax." I'm like, "Oh, really?" And so we started talking a lot about it, and he ended up recording the sopranino sax part. You will hear a absolutely gorgeous solo from him in The Dream of Innocence. It is so pure and sweet of a sound. On soprano sax, Pat Giles from England, and I did some additional recording on soprano sax as well. Pat is a frequent commenter on a lot of the orchestration groups, and always interesting to hear his perspectives on English wind bands versus American wind bands and how very different they are. On alto sax, we have Ty Livingston and Gary Martin. I have not been able to get a hold of Ty in a while. If anybody can reach out to him or knows him, please let me know. I want to make sure he's fully credited in this. And Gary is another sax player. We have a connection. I think we both went to TCU and did some work there. And then I personally recorded the saxophones, the tenor saxes in C and B flat. So you will hear some differences between B flat and C tenor saxes. You'll hear a C tenor sax solo at the very end of The Dream of Death. Tristan Carpenter did the baritone sax. Absolutely phenomenal player. He plays with Arizona Winds. And bass sax, Stefan Ziniuk. You'll hear quite a bit of bass sax throughout. There are no real big solos, but you'll hear its presence. And then bassoons. It's mostly me. I did tenor bassoon, bassoon 1, bassoon 2, bassoon 3. Tenor bassoon was a you will hear quite a bit of tenor bassoon. The Interlude Number 2 between The Dream of Flight and The Dream of Love opens up with a very long exposed tenorune solo. That was difficult to get it in tune. And then, of course, how can I forget my dear friend Richard Bobo, who recorded a wonderful contrabassoon track and Sub Contrabassoon. And as I said earlier, you will hear the real Sub Contrabassoon on the very last note. Listen for this gigantic, soft rumble. And please listen to that on very good speakers or headphones. Horns. Horns. This was a phenomenal section. Simon Scheiviller. I absolutely hope I am pronouncing your name correctly. Okay, there's a question in here. G or F tenorune. I recorded it on the F tenorune. And it's the one we had at Unmut, if you saw that. It is not a good instrument. And after reviewing the part, the revised version will be for the G tenorune, the C tenorune. It does not make much sense on the F B flat instrument. Yes, Simon, who is here now watching all the way from Switzerland. Um, oh my God, his horn playing is phenomenal. The There is a just long, beautiful solo of his in the Dream of Innocence. You'll hear, um, and then the horn sirens in the Dream of War. That's mostly him. And it is one of the most fiendishly difficult horn parts that you'll ever see. And you will hear all six horns just cutting through the ensemble, and um, man, his control up there. I don't know how many takes he did to get it that well, but chef's kiss. Just absolutely, absolutely wonderful on that. And you'll hear just some absolutely phenomenal horn players. It turns out the most common name in the horn world must be Simon, because I also have Simon Dawkins from Canada, who recorded parts of Horn 2 and 4. He is an arranger. I think he's a computer scientist. Does a lot of horn playing. Is always has a very strong opinion on things, but a really great horn player. And then Bradley Sampson filled in and finished Horns 2 and 4, as well as Horn 3. He is a marching band guru from Utah, and just did some great work on there. Absolutely phenomenal. And then there's the alto and baritone horns. Sam Gossner recorded the majority of the alto and baritone horn parts. I think it was all but one track on him. And he was using like really true sax horns from like the 1880s, 1890s. And he's a real historical brass aficionado. And so you'll hear a real authentic, true sax horn, really saxotromba sound on those. And then rounding out Keith Smith and Robert Griffiths, who stepped in and just filled out the last couple tracks on those. And you'll hear them at the very end. It's a very interesting sound hearing the alto and baritone horns kind of mixed in a wind ensemble. You really don't hear that sound very often. At least in the US, you don't. Those are super rare instruments. Trumpets. Trumpets probably the most international group. Brendan Agnew on piccolo trumpet. If you saw one of Trent Hamilton's latest videos where he's trying out a really super expensive piccolo trumpet, that's Brendan's that he's borrowing. That Brendan recorded the pick trumpet on. Brendan is the librarian with the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. Just phenomenal all around. High trumpet player. Bryant Millett from Chicago did the E-flat trumpet. And you'll hear some really nice E-flat trumpet stuff throughout. Real technical stuff, particularly the Dream of Flight. Reached out to him on Instagram. He just automatically said yes and made life easy for E-flat trumpet. C trumpet, Richard Breed from New Zealand recorded both the C trumpet parts and the flugelhorn parts. And I'll just talk about him because he recorded the flugels. It'll be in a different section. Really, really crisp and clean. His flugelhorn playing is just wonderful. Jin Jun Lee, or Lee Jin Jun, from Singapore did the B-flat trumpet. The bulk of the solo material for trumpet is in B-flat. Get a little more heroic sound. He's from Singapore, did a lot of study in England, and just this wonderful, wonderful trumpet sound. And down on bass trumpet is Robert Todd Jr., really great trombone player, low brass player, stepped in on bass trumpet. Of the weird instruments in here, bass trumpet turned out to be the most difficult instrument to find. I think I tried tracking down at least 6 different players before Robert stepped in and finally got the part recorded. And whew, bass trumpet was more difficult to get. Things that were much less common, like heckelphone or basset horn, easy. Bass trumpet was kind of my nemesis on this thing, and Robert just did a fantastic bass trumpet part. How high does the piccolo trumpet get? I think it goes up to a written high F sharp. Well, I've got the score right here. I know where the passage is. I think high F sharp written is the highest note. Maybe not. Yeah, there's a high F sharp in there. It's in the Dream of Love. Yeah. So, yeah, right before the Dream of War, you'll hear a high F sharp on the pick trumpet, and Brenda just nails it. Trombones. The trombone section. You will hear them in all their glory at the beginning of the Dream of Death, where it is nothing but 5 trombones. On alto trombone, William Combs, who just joined one of the U.S. Army bands. He played alto trombone. He is from Lubbock, Texas. Played with the Lubbock Symphony, as well as several other symphonies around there. Jenny Young did tenor trombone 1. Just phenomenal playing. The artist named Sunrise Transparence did trombone 2, tenor trombone 2. She has done some incredible multi-tracking works. One where she did the entire band version of Salvation is Created by Chesnikov. I played every single instrument on there. And that's some dedication to learn every instrument for it. It's a phenomenal recording. Joe Thomas from New Zealand stepped in and did bass trombone. And then Robert Todd again did the contrabass trombone, and I think he actually really enjoyed it, because I know he posted a bunch of pictures while he was recording the part and say, there's some meaty stuff in here, all the way down to like this pedal B flat, and just, having lots of fun with it. And you'll hear some good contrabass trombone throughout. And then our tuba section, I've already mentioned Richard Breed, who played flugelhorns, and yes, flugelhorns are part of the tuba section. On tenor tuba, Noah Lauzire, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He recorded a few tracks. You'll hear him, there's a little solo in The Dream of Innocence you'll hear him on. And Brennan Johns finished off the rest of tenor tuba euphonium part. Brennan is another composer who's done some really phenomenal, I believe at least the one symphony I've heard of his is really quite good. It does a lot of experimentation with some weird instruments like I do. Dr. Richard Demme did tenor tuba 2, euphonium. He is a historical brass expert. I first met him years ago at TME, where he did a recital on ophicleide. So I got an ophicleide player. In fact, I got 2 ophicleide players, because William Austin Whitney is an ophicleide player as well. He played bass tuba and contrabass tuba. So yes, there are parts for both F and C tuba, basically. And I think that's what he recorded them on, is an F and a C tuba. And he is the tubist with the Cambridge Symphony Orchestra in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He also owns and operates Calderwood Percussion that makes some high-end drums and percussion instruments. You'll also see him listed in the percussion section, where he plays the Mahler hammer. And yes, there's one Mahler hammer stroke in the Dream of War, and it is just right at the loudest possible moment. You'll hear several tuba solos from him throughout the piece. And then the percussion section. My God, the percussion section is massive. It's designed for 9 players. And how many did we end up with? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So yeah, there's just a lot of percussion players there, and percussion was proved to be very, very difficult during the pandemic because instruments were separated from players. I know Allison, who's here now, she's a timpanist and didn't really have access to her timpani. And the contrabass trombonist is Robert Todd Jr. If you can go find his YouTube channel, go and give it a listen. He does some great multi-tracking stuff as well. So Martin Reed from California did all the timpani, chimes, glockenspiel, field drum, bass drum, cymbals, and tam-tam. At least some of the tam-tam. He is a just percussionist. He's a band director, music instructor. Mason Cook reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got a 5-octave marimba. Can I play?" I was like, "Yes." And so he recorded a few marimba tracks for me. Michael Quartz, a student at Appalachia State University, marimba and xylophone. Holy crap, guys, his xylophone solo in The Dream of War. It is insane. I wrote it to be a virtuoso cadenza, and it is just, he knocked it out of the park. It is so good. He did the crotales and the marching bass drum. So there's a set of marching bass drums in there. About the only thing I will do with a marching band. Toril Azzolini. I cannot say his name. I am so sorry. Matt Kelker did all the vibraphones and the tom-tom. Forgive me for butchering your name. Your vibraphone tracks are just phenomenal. You'll hear lots of vibes throughout. Some jerk named Brett Newton did wind machine, thunder sheet, gongs, whirros, shell rattle, and bongos, and the sirens. Yeah, so I ended up doing quite a bit of percussion. Allison Summers, who is here in the chat, she is principal percussion of the Australasian Orchestra over in Australia, in Melbourne. I believe it's Melbourne. And she recorded snare drum, suspended cymbal, triangle, and break drum. And so you'll hear that particularly in the Dream of War and the Dream of Flight. And there's a few things other places. Thomas Hawkinson. I've never actually heard your last name pronounced. Did tambourine for me. I think he is in the room. No, I don't think he is. I think he said he's in class right now. But yeah, he is. I talked to him just not briefly, for quite a bit on Discord earlier today, talking to him, and he recorded tambourine for me. Pat Giles, who also did soprano sax, happened to record the sleigh bells for me. You'll hear quite a bit of sleigh bells in the Dream of War, Dream of Innocence. I'm getting tired now. William Austin Whitney, of course, as I said, recorded the Mahler hammer, and Michael Feingold recorded the waterphone. Yes, you'll hear quite a bit of waterphone in Interlude 1 and The Dream of Nature. And then keyboards and harp. Clotilda Jones, holy crap. She went above and beyond on the harp part, and you will hear so much harp throughout this. We went back and forth and back and forth. Essentially, I rewrote the harp part with her. She would, say, "Hey, this doesn't work here." Harp is the most challenging instrument to write for, and I feel really humbled by everything that I learned from her in regards to this. There are so many changes to the harp part that are going to be coming in the second edition of Symphony 2. The biggest change is it's going to be split out between 2 harps. The one harp just turned out to be just nearly impossible for a single harpist, so it's going to get split between two. But just, like I said, above and beyond, absolutely phenomenal playing. You'll hear her throughout. Rosa Huang from Australia did the piano part. I believe a friend of Allison's who's in the room, she reached out to her and she got a piano part done for us. So absolutely great piano part. You'll hear it quite a bit throughout. Celeste and dulcitone is Michael Feingold. So this is one of the areas where we did fudge a little and we used digital. But I feel justified in using digital celesta because that's what is done in most recording sessions and in many, many orchestras. They just simply don't have a celeste, and it turns out the digital instruments work better for recording. On a stage, if you're not having to record, a true acoustic instrument is great. But in Hollywood, they almost always use a digital instrument. With that, it gave us the opportunity to use a dulcitone. If you don't know what a dulcitone is, it's like a celeste, but instead of metal bars, it's tuning forks. And you'll hear the dulcitone at the very beginning of The Dream of Innocence. And then on organ, you will hear Jack Doherty from Ireland. I think Jack is with us right now, and he will come in near the very end, a little bit right at the end of The Dream of War, and then just a massive chorale, or really actually pretty somber chorale, in The Dream of Death. And it took him a while to get that part recorded because we had to find an organ that he had access to that had a 32-foot stop on it. So you will hear organ in conjunction with the Sub Contrabassoon. And so you'll be able to hear, just, again, the last note of the piece, you're going to hear organ 32-foot stop and Sub Contrabassoon. And then during the recording process, it struck me that, there's a standard wind ensemble instrument that I didn't have. I didn't score for. It's a double bass. And I looked around and said, well, you know what? I probably should include a double bass part in here. So I added a double bass part. And because of that, I also said, there's some stuff in here that could really benefit from a little bit of additional cello. So cello and double bass were added during the process. Katie Chambers stepped in and did 2 cello tracks. It's designed for between 2 and 4 cellists to come in. And it's just there to kind of bolster the low end a little bit, do a little bit of the sustains, a lot of pizzicato snap pits in there, and some harmonic stuff that turns out it's really, really helpful in some real high sustains, Cello Harmonics. So she has a fantastic Instagram and YouTube channel, Katie the Cellist, where she posts several times a day on both of them. Just short little snippets where she's always happy and playing your cello, and just really great player. Most of the bass parts were recorded by Sadi Zain. He is a fantastic bass player from New York City. I believe he appeared in a recent Dua Lipa video where he's playing double bass behind the pop star. And really, I reached out to him. We needed someone who had a low C bass, and he did that. And actually, in the final section, we did a scordatura where he turned it down to a low B. It's the first time I've ever done that. I'm going to do that more often. That was kind of cool. And so that was fun. And then filling in double bass 1 is Victor Minic from Serbia. Yet one more country in there. And he recorded double bass 1. And so you'll hear some of the strings add in. The old recordings of the piece do not have this, the MIDI recordings. But yeah, so that adds a little bit of body. Hey, Steve. Yes, yes. I gave you guys big kudos earlier. Yes, phenomenal, phenomenal playing from both of you. Um, Congratulations on your retirement from the Dallas Winds. You are going to be sorely, sorely missed around here. Um, I have known Steve since 1990, I think, is when I moved in next to Jeff and Lindy, Cindy's twin sister. Um, but I think that is credit to everybody. Um, it's a long list. Like I said, 59 people recorded this. I was checking some of my stats. The amount of space that is taken up on my computer is, I think I checked it before this, and it's 118 gigabytes of recordings that I have that went in to make this. And that is just a huge, huge amount of data. The editing and processing. And I did everything in Audacity. So I'm using free software. There is no fancy plugins. There's no... there is no auto-tune. There were places where I had to adjust pitch, and I did it all by ear. It is not going to be a perfect recording. I don't think it can be a perfect recording. There are places where you want a little bit more rubato, or stretch it out, and you can't do that with a click track. It is... Yes, I'll have to talk to Steve offline. I figure you guys are probably near them in Alabama now. We have quite a big Alabama contingent in the ensemble, actually. Yeah, so it's not a perfect recording, and I actually really like that. It feels human. Yes. Oh, 15 cents is nothing on notes. Okay, so probably one of the biggest fakes I did was on one of my own parts, and I'll fess up to it. When I was... Oh... Oh, you can hear me. Okay, so you can still hear me. That's right, because my microphone's plugged in. It's not attached to the camera. Okay, so, yes. Okay, so, yeah, you can hear me. Thanks for reminding me that. So what I was going to say is, when I was recording the tenor room part, there's a passage that goes up to written high B, sounding, what is that, high E? Yeah, sounding high E, and the tenor I was using only would go up to B flat. It would not go up that extra half step. So I faked it. I played a B flat instead, and I digitally transposed it up to B natural. You will not really be able to tell. But I did stuff like that all along, mixing everybody together. There were instances where between different countries, people were using different tunings. I know there were some A442, there was some A440, and so that all had to be corrected. It took a long time and a really good ear. And what I learned is that an audio engineer um, it needs to be just as important as a conductor is. And I approached the whole audio as if I were a conductor. Basically, I'm given these raw parts and I'm manipulating just like I would a conductor. Bring this out, push that back. Really interesting learning experience on that. But I really don't have a lot else to say. If anybody has any other questions, let me know. The live stream is going to start in 10 minutes. Let me make sure I post the link so everybody can head over there. Yes, Richard, we do forgive you for manipulating the 15 cents. So yeah, for what Richard did, he originally we were going to do a completely faked Sub Contrabassoon, and we had it done. He recorded it on contrabassoon and then digitally shifted it an octave lower. But the prototype got to the point where it could play a few notes, and I was there to witness that, and phenomenal. And so we just subbed in the one note, the last B natural. By the way, that is the lowest note ever heard in a recording, as far as I can tell, in an orchestral recording, wind band recording. Because you don't, it's a half step below any organ, say for the very rare organs that have a 32-foot stop, and I don't think anybody's ever really recorded a wind band or an orchestra piece with one of those organs. And so you will hear the lowest note ever recorded in a wind band or orchestra piece. But yeah, guys, I am super, super happy with it. I am glad so many of you are here right now. And I hope that you really enjoy the performance. I'll talk a little bit about the video. 90% of it is going to be stock footage. I made the decision very early on. We are not going to edit video into this of all the players. Yes, I think I am going to put it on Spotify. And I think I will do that. I'm going to get it out on YouTube first. And it's got 8 minutes before it goes. But there is one section in the video of me conducting to a fake ensemble. You can please ignore my horrible facial expressions. It is very difficult to cue to someone who's not there. But after that, it's going to all go into the video, just the images. No, there is no rolling score on that. You would not be able to read the score. I've got an 11 by 17 score next to me, and there are pages on here that are too small to read. On 11 by 17 on a small YouTube window, it'd be next to impossible. The next step with the piece is I am working on a second edition that's going to incorporate all the changes that were made during the process. Yeah, so that's going to take a while. I will probably do a bunch of work on that next week while I am recuperating from my surgery. I'm going to be down for about a week. So I'll probably spend a bunch of that just working on re-engraving it. It's a big process, and it's a huge score. But anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and end the live stream now. I want to make sure everybody heads over to the premiere recording on the other channel. or on the other video, and it is going to start in about 5 minutes. It is just huge thank you to everybody, and I will. Yes, Richard, there will be crumb horns and Giga Racket in the next edition. No, there will not. But yeah, so I will be in the chat on the live stream. I'll answer any questions. I'll talk a little bit about the piece as it's going on. I will make fun of the expressions I make while conducting, and I hope to see you all there. Yes, Wagner tubas actually are in the second edition. I made the decision to actually replace the alto and baritone horns with Wagner tubas in the second edition, simply because that's what they were originally intended for. The original concept was to have the alto and baritone horns as Wagner tuba substitutes, and so second edition, yeah, will have Wagner tubas, and that is firm change. That it's also going to have an octo contrabass clarinet in it for Jared. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this now. I will see you all over on the premiere, and it's going to start in about 4 minutes. Thank you.